Okay, let's wait if somebody's there. Some students, I think there will be one or two to join. So let's wait a few minutes. Okay.
Okay, miss.
Okay, let's start. No need to keep more waiting. Right, our time is going. Right. So today we are going to do a new poem. Right. About something about the war. Right. Something we are going to speak about the war. I will tell you the topic of the poem. So today we are going to discuss about war is kind. Right? The poem is war is kind. Right? War is kind. We are going to discuss about the poem War is Kind, which is written by Stephen Crane. Right? Which is written by Stephen Crane. So, did you find out the poem? Okay. Have you got the poem with you?
Yes, miss, I found.
Okay. Right. So, war is kind. Before we are speaking about the poem, in literature, in many poems, a lot of poets have spoken about the theme war. Right? The theme war. Many poets have spoken about this war. Right? They have given their negative views. Right? They have given their negative views towards the war. Because why is that? They see the war as a what? A pool of blood, a total massacre, a destruction, loss of many lives, like a place like that, filled of horror and violence. So, is a war something a very kind of a sweet thing? No, war is not any kind of a sweet, right? So, what kind of thing is this war? War is a very horrifying thing, violent. When we heard the war, the word war, what do we feel inside our hearts? We feel inside we have terror, we are frightening, we feel strange. We can have some kind of visual image, a mental picture is there in our minds about the war. Right? So much horrific is this war. None of the poets I have seen, they have given their positive views towards this war. They have never speak anything favorable in sake of in positive pessimistic anything towards this war. They have given their negative views towards this war. They have never given, right? Joining, I'm going to do the poem War is Kind, right? War is Kind by Stephen Crane. Please have that poem with you. right? I didn't still start the poem. I'm just going on with the background, right? War is Kind by Stephen Crane. Please have that poem with you all, right? Right. The new students who have joined now today, I'll speak with you a bit later at the beginning of the class, right? Right. For the I was speaking about the war, right? Now, if we take the poem of William Shakespeare, who was in his poem The Seven Stages of Man, right? There was a poem written by him called Seven Stages of Man, where he speaks that a man has seven stages from birth up to the death, right? From birth up to the death, he has seven stages. In that seven stages, like in the fourth stage, a man gets some kind of brave inside his heart, and he is ready to take some challenges, right? He's ready to take some challenges with him, and what he is going to do is going to for the military field. He likes to join for the military field. Okay, he's going to join for the military field and be like, he likes to feel as a hero. Why? You know, most basically we know that each and every country we have war heroes, right? So with these people, these soldiers are named as who? They're named as heroes. They are named as heroes because they are the ones who go to the battlefield, right? They are the ones who goes to the battlefield and start to attack with the other enemies, the opposing party. So, however, in many poems, right, almost in many poems where the poet has inked about the war, they have spoke that what? The negative side of this war. None of them have spoke the positive side. There's another poem written by Gerard Manley Hopkins, right? Title coming as Disabled. There, it's a very beautiful poem which was in A-level syllabus, all A-level syllabus. There he spoke that the war, that certain boy, when he was after the victory of a football match, right? After the victory of a football match, he had friends to cheer for him, to carry on him, and lot of people, friends were gathering around him, and he felt high-spirited. He felt victory, he felt glory about him, and he thought the same thing will happen after going for the military or the battlefield. But what happened to him, unfortunately? He was unfortunately disabled. He went to the military field and he was attacked by the opposition team. And what happened to him was he was attacked and he got disabled. What happened at finally, there was only one person, like a priest, was there near him to take care of him. But his friends who were covering, who were jeering, giving him cheers and doing everything, who were raising him at that football match day, was not, none of the friends were there to be seen at that day. So see, what is it's something kind of ironic actually. People used to praise, oh, it's a glory, you will get these kind of things, you will get a uniform, you will get stars, you will be a hero, and especially in some poems, they have said that that the certain when men are actually young, right? When men are young, they used to get enlisted themselves as a soldier. So when they are young, they go to the military field, and before that, some lovers, when they are in a kind of stage of a loving stage, they say, the girl says, the partner says to the boy that if you go to the military field, you will be a hero like this, and some kind of things. She's also saying she's showing her happiness like that to this person, to his boyfriend actually. At that moment, what happened is that person thinks that his girl will be happy and he will get some respect, he will be more loved, and they will be able to live happily. Because why does he think like that? Because at that stage, he likes to take up challenge. As I previously mentioned in 7 Stages of Man written by William Shakespeare, he said that at the age of 18, right, at the age of 18, young men like to take challenges. And they like to take challenges. Therefore, as a consequence of it, they go to the military field. And they go to the military field. And what happened at last? Some survive, but some, what happens, get disabled, but some won't ever come back. That's the three conditions are there. Some survive in the sense, I would like to add another word, some barely survive, because you are not going and sitting there in the middle, in the battlefield. You have to have attack. There are enemies coming to your territory. So what you have to do, you have to attack them. You can't just stand and wait, or sit and wait, or just watch and wait. You are a soldier there. You have heavy duties to perform there, right? So what will happen? Some barely survive. So it's really a sad condition. We know during the World War, right? I'm just giving this background for your general information. During the World War, almost all the countries had to contribute themselves, especially the young. Go in, right? They had to go front, right? They had to go front, and they have to either go until the war ends, they will go until the war ends, or some, really what happens? Some fell on the burial ground. You can have type of a visual image. Now just imagine our Sri Lanka, right? You might have small history about this war, but your parents might have a big history about the Sri Lankan war, right? 30 years war prevailed in Sri Lanka. All the soldiers who enlisted themselves and who faced that war are all the soldiers inside today, are they all are living? No, they are not living, everyone. Some had to give up their life, right? There were some heroes we know who gave up their life, right? Some heroes, we mark them still in the history, we used to speak about them, and some were disabled, some never returned, some small portion amount is barely surviving. So war is not a what? Not a dream thing. No, it's not a dreamland. It's not a sweet thing to be memorized, to be speak. What kind of a thing is this war? War is a horrified, and it gives some kind of violence. It gives violence. It gives violence. What else does it give? Now in the war, who are we? What is actually happening in the war? We are attacking with another group of people. Okay? They are also a group of people. We are also a group of people. What happens at the end? It becomes that battlefield is full of blood. We cannot see at it even. And those soldiers are just laying on the ground, their bodies. In some poems, they had mentioned that even the funeral rites that were given for the ordinary men were unable to perform at the battlefield because they had to go more in the war field, in the track, in the battlefield, they had to go more, right? Therefore, the ordinary men who get the funeral, we have certain kind of funeral rites, right? We have some funeral rites or rituals, right? We had some funeral rituals we perform, right? We perform after certain person dead, right? Each and every religion, according to their religion, respect to every religion, they have what? Funeral rites or funeral rituals. But will these people get like those things? No, they didn't get. Why? Because they didn't have time to do those things. Those bodies were just thrown away. And the animals like the vultures, those animals came up for the flesh. So see how horrified and see how violent is this atmosphere of war. Is it a kind of sweet thing? Now we can mentally imagine how the war feels. We saw through television, every media when our soldiers were attacking with the LTTs. Was it a very wonderful paradise? Yes. Was it a wonderful thing? What did you
No.
feel? Yes. Yes. You can speak, you can give up, you can speak and give your ideas, right? I would like to listen to them, right? Because you also have to speak up with me, right? Give your ideas also.
It it was quite a horror to see the brutality.
Yes, of course. Really, it was horror, right? It was really horror. Good, nice answer, good answer, right? And also, what happens was, what about the families representing these soldiers representing families? They had families. What happened? Were they living happily? No. Destruction. Their families were shattered actually. What happened now? For example, we can take our Sri Lanka, right? Inside our country, what happened? The families of those soldiers, are they living happily? No, they had some what? They were in frightened. Every minute they lived in fear. They had a kind of fear, right? A fear is there. They lived with fear, right? They lived with fear. Even us, the ordinary people too, lived in fear. We didn't know what will happen in the next moment. Where will the bomb will be blasted at the next moment? So we had to survive in fear. We didn't know what will happen. So much of total, if we count the destruction, I think in billions we had a destruction. Many important places were destructed because of the bomb blasting, right? Lots of historical monuments, schools, and public transport, everywhere fear. Lot of not only the lives of soldiers, but the lives of ordinary people were also given in sake of this war, which continued for 30 years. See how horrified, how violent is this? Is this a sweet thing? It's not a sweet thing. And what this is what we can come to a conclusion. This is the futility of war. War is something futile, unnecessary, a futile thing. Why? Because we can what? Or many philosophers and lots of people, experts, says that don't come up with war. Don't try to have a war, but try to have some discussions and try to come to a conclusion. Don't bring wars, because war is such a destruction. It makes not only lives killed, or not only the loss of lives, but it destructs not only the places, buildings. What happens for our economy? What will happen for our economy? No economy for us, right? What will happen? Because we spend all the money, the government have to spend their whole money, expenditures are given for what? For the weapons. What will happen for the other sectors? Will there be money enough in the government treasury to spend for the others? No, there will be no money. That's the reality of the war. That's why many people say, what? Don't try to have a war inside your country. Please don't make it a war. Right? Now, what happened in our Sri Lanka? We had some kind of what? A war, but we could come to a conclusion and we could settle it actually. We could have settled it. Due to language barriers is the main thing. The language barrier is the main consequence. That it was impact for this war for 30 years. And there were other minor reasons, but the main thing was language barrier, right? When you're going for the higher education, you will learn more about it, right? Anyway, so let's move to our topic. We spoke a lot of things. Yes, by the way, before I'm going to the poem, can I know who are the newcomers today, please? Can you speak up? Yes?
Miss, I'm quite new, like I was there for the trial, like thing that was there.
Mm-hmm.
I'm Sandalu.
What is his school, dear?
Miss, can you repeat it?
What is his school? What?
My school, Devi
Yeah,
Balika. My school is Devi Balika, Miss.
You were there. You said you in the shrine. Okay. Any others? Okay. I think she had left. She's having some current issues. Right. Okay. Right. Good. Right. So, is it clear up to what I told you about the war? Do we have any problems, or do you have anything to add, or do you have any type of doubts in your mind? Yes.
No, Miss.
Yes.
No, miss.
Okay. Lucky, do you have any issues?
No, miss.
Okay. Then let's discuss about the poem War is Kind. So War is Kind, written by whom? It's written by Stephen Crane, right? It's written by Stephen Crane. So let's see, right? Who is this our Stephen Crane, right? Actually, Stephen Crane is known as an American poet, right? This is an American poet, not only a poet, he's also an author too, right? He's an author also. And also it says that, that according to his biography, it says that he lived for he had a very short life, but during that time, he was a very famous person. And also the critics recognize him as a very great writer, okay? And he has written his first novel called A Girl of the Street, and he had won some international awards for that, right? Or something, yeah, like that. And also that Red Badge of Courage, a story based on civil war. These two things he had written. So let's move to the poem. First of all, I will read out the poem and let's discuss the surface meaning, and later slowly let's discuss about the deeper meaning and the techniques, right? Okay, let's move. War is kind. Do not weep, maiden, for war is kind, because your lover threw wild hand towards the sky, and the frightened steed ran on along. Do not weep, war is kind. What happens here? Who is the person he addressed? Do not weep, maiden. A maiden is a person like a young lady, right? A young lady or a woman who is not really married, right? Expecting to marry, something like that. Now this poet is addressing to the maiden. In the first stanza, he is addressing the maiden that do not weep. Don't weep, maiden, for woe is kind, because your lover threw wild hands towards the sky, and afraid his steed ran on alone. Do not weep, woe is kind. What kind of thing that we can come across? He's saying that woe is kind, and he's asking, this poet is asking for the maiden not to weep. And he is repeating these lines, woe is kind. Is actually his woe is kind? Now we discussed a lot about the woe. Is really this woe is kind? No, it's not
No.
kind. Yeah, it's not kind. So we can take this as a technique called paradox, right? It acts as kind, but in reality, it is not kind. Why do we say it as kind? In surface, by judging the surface, by judging the outer appearance, we used to say this woe is a kind thing. Now, just go back and just think, when we were experiencing our Sri Lankan war, what happened? We were applauding, giving cheers, and we were waiting till our victory, right? That's a one side. We cheered, we said, oh yes, we need to go, we need to go. Otherwise, those people will come and catch our land, right? Where we are going to live, we don't have a land there. So we need to go, yes, yes. Immediately start the war, and we started the war. That's how the war started. Now the aspect of starting the war in which period 30 years in our Sri Lanka, and we were cheering and we were waiting patiently. What happened? How many enemies killed? How many? Oh, good. Like that, we were waiting. At that moment, we feel war is very kind. But the other side, which we don't see, what is that? Loss of lives, destruction, fallen of the economy, bankrupt, lots of things. Right? Those are the hidden things that we can't see for our eyes, because we were like blindfolded. Because our lots of media covered the battlefield, and we feel glory and pride, and we were cheering and putting crackers, and some things were happening, right? But we didn't see the hidden part of this. There was another thing. That's why we are saying this voice kind of a paradox. Paradox means it acts as, now for example, a woman, let's take a woman is acting as kind, but in reality she is unkind. Like that, here the war seems to be a kind thing, but in reality it's not kind. It's a cruel, violent, which brings loss of life, destruction, bankrupt, loss, lot of things it brings for us, right? Therefore, you can underline this topic, war is kind, as a what? A paradox. It's a paradox, right? It's a kind of a technique. Okay, let's move and see. Do not weep, maiden, for war is kind, right? Because your lover threw wild hands towards the sky. And also, somewhat you may hear, for war is kind. Those lines, first stanza, we have the line called for war is kind. That line can be taken as irony, right? That line can be taken as irony. We can take it as paradox also. The title is actually, we can take as paradox. It's irony. What do you mean by irony? The difference between the appearance and the reality. Paradox also the same thing, right? Slight differences only these two have, right? So for war is kind is an irony, right? We can mark it as an irony. Because your lover threw wild hands toward the sky. Now you might be wondering what is meant by this wild hands, right? We have hands, but how it becomes wild, right? Actually, it is a kind of a symbol, right? It's a kind of a symbol, and it symbolizes as a what? It symbolizes a soldier. The wild hands it's a symbol and it symbolizes a soldier. Why is that? Because a soldier is always in high spirit, right? Because the soldier, we know, he has a kind of a high spirit inside him. And actually, he is not a hermit, right? He is not a hermit meditating in the forest or doing kind of things. Then what he is doing? His hands is always seeking for a prey, right? His hands is always seeking for a prey, actually, right? Now you can guess what? And certain kind of wild animal, you can imagine certain kind of a wild animal. Take the tiger. What happens? Is that animal having a kind of meditation in the inside the forest? No. Then what he's doing? Every moment it passes, he is slowly having a close observation for what? For his prey. And he's waiting someone till maybe he's watching whether it's a deer coming, whether what another kind of animal coming, like that. He's waiting to catch it. Same kind of action is done or acted by the soldiers. Right? Same kind. Now, as a wild tiger is waiting to catch a kind of prey, the soldier is also waiting to catch prey. What is the prey of the soldiers? The enemies. The enemy is also a type of a people. It's not somebody like aliens. They are also a group of people. Now, though we label those people as tigers, LTT carders, they are also human beings, right? So what happened here is wild hands, actually, you can underline it. It symbolizes a soldier. It symbolizes a soldier, right? Because your lover threw wild hands toward the sky and the frightened steed, right? A frightened steed ran on along. Do not weep, right? Do not weep, boys kind. What do you mean by affrighted? Here, affrighted means frightened. Frightened, right? Steed. What do you mean by steed? A horse to ride on. Steed. We have here the word called steed. A horse to ride on. A horse to ride on. Steed means a horse to ride on. So you might be wondering whether the horse were taken for the military field. Yes, they were taken. This is quite some back in history, actually. Not the modern technologies were not much used, right? But we have lack of experiences of using horses and going. But somewhere back in history, we had the European people. It's quite familiar because they always used it. Right, the horses were trained and they were taken for the battlefield. And what happened was, we can have a kind of a visual image. The enemy is attacking for this soldier, and he fell off from the horse back. He fell off, and what happened? The horse was frightened. We can visualize a kind of violence atmosphere. We can visualize and we can have a type of auditory image also, though it's not mentioned here. We can like hear how the horse is giving his like something very terror frightened noise in some films. If we have watched in some cartoons films, we always used to see when there's some kind of a violence, some kind of a fight, what happens? That horse is going like something is dragging and he's going some up and he's giving a terror voice. He's very frightened, fearful, right? He feels fear. And what happens now? That certain kind of soldier had died with the attack from that opposition team, the enemies actually. So this poet is saying for this maiden, do not weep. How wonderful it, right? He's telling, because your lover threw wild hand toward the sky and the frightened steed ran on along, do not weep, boy is kind. Now, if something has kind thing has happened to this soldier or this maiden maybe has full, she might have full of expectations. Maybe she was waiting until they are having a kind of a wedding or waiting for his arrival, right, to discuss about those things. But now what has happened to this person? The maiden. The first person we are speaking here is maiden. What has happened to her? She has lost everything. So how can we say this war is kind? Did anybody come and give any some kind of goods, or did they come and say something? Don't be like that. We will help you or something like that. No, nothing happened. Now this maiden is what? Isolated. She will be an solitary or an isolated. She will represent as an icon of isolated figure in the society because she lost everything. She lost the love of her life. Now she is isolated. So that is a one figure, one person of categorized in the society who lost the life because of the war. Right? Let's move to the next cancer and see. Hoarse booming drums of the regiment, little souls who thirst for fight. These men were born to drill and die. The unexplained glory flies above them. Great is the battle, God, great and his kingdom. What kind of thing might be going on with these lines? This second cancer, in summary, it describes the nature of the war. What does it describe? It describes the nature of the war. Right? Hoarse, booming drums of the regiment. Now we have a type of what? A kind of auditory image. That means we can hear the booming. These drums are booming. Right? Booming means what? To make a loud, deep sound. Booming means to make a loud, deep sound of the regiment. Little souls. What do you mean by little souls here? Who are referred to little souls here? Not anybody, but who? The soldiers who thirst for fight. I would like to speak about that line. Little souls who thirst for fight. You know, now the soldiers who were just first enlisted themselves as soldiers at their first, what happens? Those people or these soldiers are being motivated by another kind of people, right? They are being motivated. And also their kind of brainwashed is also done. And a kind of motivation is also given for them. What type of motivation is given for them? They are asked to, these are the enemies. These are our enemies. They use every day, you know, the soldiers who are these people who are, they are living in a certain kind of camps they have, right? So what happens? Each and every day they are given factories. You have to shoot, like they are giving kind of shooting factories, and they are given practicals, lot of things. From this, all the lessons they taught, they were given, what happens for them? As I previously mentioned, they are like high-spirited, they are motivated, and what happens now? They are in a thirst for fight now. They have kind of a thirst. That means they okay, let's again speak where we were, right? I was speaking that these little souls who were thirst for fight, right? So these soldiers, as I mentioned you a little bit before, what? These little souls were referred to as soldiers, and these soldiers are being motivated day and night right? It's very interesting to see, right? They are given a lot of practices and these things, and they are really motivated and they feel high spirit because little souls mean in the sense soldiers. These people are young actually, who are really in favor, who really like to take challenges in their life, right? That's why they have more thirst for fight because they have never experienced such kind of a fight before, right? Maybe they have experiences the fight in the schools and everything. They think such kind of fight is going in here also. They don't know the destruction, what is going on, because why? They are not given the real details of the war. They are never given the real details of the war. They never says, oh, you will be like this, your family will lose everything. They never say those things. Only the benefits, and only they are motivated. So these soldiers, these poor soldiers actually, they don't have any kind of a training. They're improper training actually. Therefore, they think as the fights which happened in the school and the victory they won in the football matches, and they think they compare. They used to compare those things and think same thing is going on with this battlefield because they don't know that battlefield is a horrified place. Right? These men were born to drill and die. These men were born to drill and die. What do you mean by drill and die? To fight and win or die. That's why these soldiers have two options. Right? Sometimes the war will guess the war to fight and win. Right, okay. Sometimes you will be marked as heroes because you fight and won. But sometimes to fight and die. However, the word drill and die demonstrate what does it tries to say? To fight and win or die. So the soldiers have only two options. You can fight and win, or else you can fight and die. How nice. Can we say that yes, we will win the war? Can we predict that we will win the war? No, we can't say. To fight and win. Sometimes we will be able to win, but sometimes we won't be able to win. Right? However, though we win or not, a kind of soldiers have to give their precious life in sake of their victory. Right? The unexplained glory flies above them. Great is the battle gold. Great and his kingdom. Oh God, right? The battlefield is compared to God. The last line of the second cancer can be taken as a metaphor. Great is the battle God. Great and his kingdom. How wonderfully a comparison is given for this battlefield. Now, what do you mean by God? Everybody used to respect every day, every minute. We have a huge respect towards the God. Now, what has happened here is great is a battle God. How can we say the battlefield is great as God? What kind of a place is a battlefield? And how can we compare the battlefield to God? We cannot make any comparisons with God. Can we make any comparisons to God easily? It's really impossible. But what has happened here? The battlefield is compared to God. So much glory, so much honor. Can we give a kind of honor to the battlefield? Let's see. Great and his kingdom. Now we are saying it as a kingdom. Can we say this place as a kingdom? The battlefield is a kingdom. We can visually imagine what kind of a place is a kingdom. There is a king representing queen is there and other servants are there like that. But is such a kind of a thing is happening inside the battlefield? Is a kind of a kingdom? No, it's not a kingdom. This is a metaphor. Let's discuss about this line more in detail a bit later. Right. I would like to speak about this line, before line. The unexplained glory flies above thee. What is this unexplained glory? What is this? Actually, this phrase, right? This phrase signifies the poet's pessimistic and also the doubtful approach towards the glory that would be earned by the soldiers. Now, this poet, the poet who is writing this poem, our Stephen Crane, he has a kind of a doubt. He's thinking, what kind of thing is this going on with this glory? And what kind of a glory will be earned by the soldiers? He's having a question. On the other hand, they earn the glory. What? How they earn the glory actually, the soldiers? Like as we students, do they earn their glory by passing the exams or something like that? No, they are how they are earning their glory.
By winning the war.
Yeah, winning the war. Yes, you're correct. Good. By winning the war, and also I would like to add something, through blood or killing their enemies. Right? Through blood or killing their enemies. You are correct, like winning the war. Right? And also, inside this winning the war, something very sarcastic, winning the war, this who win this war is not given the real glory. That's the truth in Sri Lanka. It's though it's a bitter thing to speak, right? Same thing happened in our. Why? According to the political influences, the soldiers were not given the real place who won the war. They didn't get the glory. That kind of a glory was given to somebody else. It was dragged, right? That means that certain kind of political figures actually, they try to exploit the war, the glory actually, which was earned by the soldiers, and the people who were just waiting, that means the political influence, the public figures, right? This kind of people try to drag the glory from those soldiers, and they try to have it with themselves. That's the truth, right? That is what he is saying, unexplained glory. This glory is really impossible to be explained. That's why they are saying the unexplained glory, right? The unexplained glory. Okay, and the last line says, great is battle God, great and his kingdom. This line we can take as a metaphor, as I said you before. Right, okay, let's move. The third side says like this, a field where 1,000 crops lie. Do not be babe, for woe is kind, because your father tumbled in the yellow trenches, raged at his breast, gulped and died. Do not weep, woe is kind. Right? A field where 1,000 crops lie. Crops in the sense, the dead bodies. Crops means the dead bodies. The first line of the third canza, actually it's a paradox. Right? It's a paradox. A field where 1,000 crops lie. Now earlier, what happened? We used to say that battlefield is great as God and it's great as its kingdom. But when we are coming to the third cancer, what has happened to that so glorious battlefield? It has gone somewhere. What has happened to it now? Totally opposite now. A field where 1,000 crops lie. Earlier, we used to say it's great as God the battlefield. But now when we are coming, it says a field where 1,000 crops lie. So it is Very fantastic thing to see. Is it a miracle? Is it something kind of what a God asked to do? Has God asked to kill people and gain victory for us? No. Then what is here? A field where 1,000 crops lie. Right? It describes that the battlefield as a place where thousands of dead bodies are found. We can have a visual image with a violent atmosphere. See how many lives are given up because of the sake of the war. Thousands of lives. Do not be babe, for war is kind. Now in the third cancer, the poet addresses for a small baby in the sense, small child or a baby who lost his father. See how sorrow is it? This poor child lost his father because of the war, because his father had enlisted himself as a soldier and he had got killed. How sorrow is it? How sad it is. Right? Because your father tumbled in the yellow trenches, raged at his breast, right? What do you mean by trenches actually? Here they says about something called trenches. Trenches mean a long, deep hole dug in the ground actually. Now it imagines us that Sri Lankan war territory, we had a kind of thing called bunkers. Same thing, these trenches also, right? A long deep hole dug in the ground is known as what? The trenches. What has happened? Though he, now if we just try to take the surface meaning here, this poet says that though your father was hiding himself in that, he couldn't make living. He could not survive. What has happened? The enemies had attacked him, right? He tried to survive. He had his breath, but again he had given his last breath. He tried to breathe. He tried to respire, but he couldn't do it. He had to close his eyes forever. He had to say goodbye for his child. But unfortunately, this child couldn't see even the dead body of his father. How ironic is these things? How sorrowful, what a destruction is these things. Right? Do not weep. War is kind. Though this child lost his father even, right? This poet is saying, don't weep. Do not weep. War is kind. Something we feel like ironic. Why he is saying this every time? War is kind. Let's come to that topic a bit later. Okay. Next, it's saying like this: swift blazing flag of the regiment, eagle with crest of red and gold. These men were born to drill and die. Point for them the virtue was slaughter. Make plain to them the excellence of killing. Numerous of new words, numerous of phrases are coming. We have discussed them in detail also, right? Swift blazing flag of the regiment, eagle with crest of red and gold. I would like to speak about the two lines of this stanza, swift blazing flag of the regiment. They're speaking about a flag, the flag of a certain regiment. We know there are, we in Sri Lanka, if we take the example in Sri Lanka, we have certain kind of regiments, we say, right? Or they have certain kind of representing their flag. As we have a certain flags representing our schools, right? They also have certain kind of flags for their regiments, right? Now swift blazing, right? Slowly What is happening here? That means it's just, we can see slowly spreading, right? Slowly having going in the wind, right? Okay. The virtue of slaughter. What do you mean by virtue? Virtue are high moral standards. Now, what do you mean by virtue? Virtue means high moral standards. And slaughter means what? Killing. Right? Virtue means high moral standard. Virtue. High moral standards. Virtue. And also it says about slaughter. Slaughter means, what do you mean by slaughter? Killing. Yes. Killing.
Brutally killing.
Brutality, yes, killing of massacre of people. Right? Killing of massacre of people, yes, brutal. Yes, correct. That's also correct. Now let's try to get clear. What does this tries to say through this line? What is this line? Point for them, the virtue of slaughter make plain to them the excellence of killing. Before going to the line excellence of killing, I would like to speak about the line virtue of slaughter. What do you mean by virtue of slaughter? Now actually, everything has a culture. Everything has a culture. We are, but we are also respecting our cultures, and also we are representing our culture, right? The bow also has a type of a culture. The bow also has a type of a culture, but it's totally different. We are living in what? We are living in a civilized society. Right? We are living in a civilized society. We are not living in a primitive society. What do you mean by primitive society? Inside the primitive society, we didn't have any type of laws and orders, no acts, nothing. We didn't have any type of parliament kings or any people. We didn't have. What we did, when we felt anger, we tried to kill another person. Like that, we didn't have any these moral standards or anything. But in the primitive society, the slaughter took place. In the primitive society, slaughter took place. Now you know the African people, right? African people, they had a grand history for primitive society because they had slaughtering and these kind of things actually. But now they don't have, they are also now civilized, right? In some parts they have, but not much. However, now almost all the countries by now, what has happened? Now take example for Sri Lanka. Are we living in a primitive society? Are we going to kill people as we want? Can we kill a person as we want? No, we can't kill a person as we want. There are several laws and there are several acts given. You have to be like this. If you kill a person, you will be given such type of punishments. You will be in prison. Such kind of things are given for us. Why is that? Because we are living in what? A civilized society. Civilized in the sense a civilization. We had civilizations, and now up to now what we happen? We are having virtue, high moral standards in our society. But when we are considering about this war culture, they don't have what? They are not living in a civilized society. They are not inside the frame of civilized society. If they are living in a civilized society, how can we say slaughtering as a virtue? A doubt arises. Right? We used to consider in the war culture, they used to consider slaughtering as a virtue. That means killing of brutality is like high moral standards. They consider it as a very standard thing. And very grand thing they considered killing of massacre of people. Right? So it's really something very ironic thing. Right? And also we have to know that in the according to the primitive society, actually as I said you previously, killing of people was a very simple action. It's like a frequent action. They every day they used to kill the people. And also according to the concept of survival of the fittest, what happens? The weaker forces were destroyed and only the stronger were able to, that means stronger forces could survive. This had become a virtue those days. We know that survival of the fittest, which was a theory brought by this Charles Darwin, right? He said that only the weaker forces will be destroyed and the forces will be able to survive, right? These people, the people who were representing the war, they took this as a metaphor and considered it as a virtue those days. And what happened? They considered it as a virtue. And they told, that means what happened actually, the stronger forces mean the people who had high ranks, the people who had proper training, people who had experience in the war were able to survive. But the young souls who were inexperienced, who didn't have any type of experience, they had to give their life. So they can be marked as the weaker forces, the innocent lives, right? They had to give up their life in sake of the war. So what happened? Actually, this the virtue of slaughter is a metaphor. With this metaphor, what happens? The poet used to mock at the war. He's having kind of a sarcasm. What is this war? Right? He's trying to laugh at the war. What kind of thing is it? Yeah, you telling this slaughtering as a virtue. What is this? He's mocking at them. And also, he does not believe about this war culture. He never believes about this war culture. And also, it says about the next line. What does the next line says? Make plain to them the excellence of killing. Make plain to them the excellence of killing. What? The word excellence had come for this killing also. What do you mean by this? Let's speak a bit about this line, excellence of killing. In excellence of killing means those who are actually inspired by the war, or those who are involved in the war, are restricted to different type of idea, right? You know, there are some people who says like war is kind. They are really happy when they have type of war in countries. You know now, for example, even though it's bitter to say, right? Some countries, very powerful countries, you know, who are manufacturing weapons, right? Those big powerful countries, they used to be very happy when they see other countries are having type of killing between each other. Why is that? Because they can sell their weapons and they can have a benefit, they can earn lots of money. Why? Because those people, they are killing no end. They will order many weapons and bombs and everything. What happens? The people who are having the country, who are experiencing the war, their economy is going down, and the people who are manufacturing weapons and selling them, they have their economies rising very nicely, skyrocketing. Right? So there are type of people who says killing is good, killing, they consider killing as an excellent action because they can have some benefits. One thing the countries can gain, their economy will be benefited by selling their weapons and everything. And the other side is what? They can invest a large amount of money. The people who are selling weapons, they have started like a business also by now. Currently, they are investing a lots of money. Some countries, they used to create war. You know, there are some powerful countries, they used to create war in some smaller countries who don't have much experience about this war history or anything. Those powerful countries come, just land, or they through various type of tricks and tips, they used to have write something and they just wait till some kind of war is going and they quickly get happy because they can give type of weapons. Right? It says, according to the political history, it says the same thing happened in Sri Lanka also, because the two parties needed the weapons and lots of equipments we needed for our war. It's not an easy thing. For 30 years it continues. Think how the big countries, maybe they had a big investment by selling those equipments related to war, by selling those to our country. And certainly some European, some big powerful countries, they used to write some more things, try to give more things and try to brainwash some kind of people and also try to raise more war, more anger between the opposition parties and do lots of kind of things. Anyway, this excellence of killing means, right? There are some people who are inspired by the war. Right? And also the other thing, the political parties, right? They can also have this benefit, and the countries who used to manufacture. And the other thing is, we can take for some extent the families of soldiers also. For some extent we can take. Not in the much about the killing, but for some extent we can take means because they were given kind of some beneficiaries during the higher, that means when the war was in big, that means war was in higher, it's a critical time, when the war was in a critical moment, some families were benefited, right? They were given some, they used to feed with that. That means, if I say directly, the people who went as enlisted themselves as soldiers, they were able to get some goods, right? They were able to get feed actually. They got their daily needs. They were able to feed themselves. They were able to feed themselves because one person from that family enlisted themselves as soldiers. You know, there were back in history, some, not like today, unlike today, some educational opportunities were very less, right? They couldn't have high educations, and those under such circumstances, some young men used to enlist themselves as soldiers, and they used to give their remittances and everything, salary, to feed for as a solution, though they know that it's a critical thing, that they won't be able to, they are not sure about their lives, but in order to survive, in order to make the other family members feed, they enlisted themselves as soldiers. That can be taken at for some extent, but the big thing is that the people who are gaining lots of benefits without any sorrow. There are some people, category of people without any sorrow, right? Without any type of sorrow, they have their benefit and investments through these wars, right? That is what is meant by this excellence of killing. See how deep we have to go with these words. We cannot judge with the words from the surface level. That is known as literature. Right? There are some phrases, words that we cannot quickly catch and understand. That's why we used to say to the students, or used to recommend our students to read critically. Read not your, for other lessons in subjects we used to say read your book, but in literature we can't just say read it. You have to have critical thinking. Think critically. Please bear it in your mind. Okay, then the next cancer, let's read and see. And a field where 1,000 crops lie, mother whose heart hung humble as a button on the bright splendid shroud of your son, do not weep, woe is kind. Now the third figure comes out finally, who is going to suffer because of a certain loss. Who is going to lose? What kind of figure is this? Mother. Can mother wait without his son? No, it's really impossible. She is going to lose her everything. The whole wealth, we know the parents consider their children as the wealth of them, not the other things. The number one, the wealth is their children. So this is a very sad moment. And a field where 1,000 crops lie, mothers whose heart hung humble as a button on bright splendid shroud of your son, do not weep, woe is kind. What do you mean by shroud here? Here shroud means a piece of cloth, that there's a certain kind of a cloth that is wrapped around the dead body, right? The person's body before it is buried. Before we are burying that kind of person, the dead body, actually, we are going to wrap that person with a certain kind of a cloth. That cloth is known as shroud. We can have a type of a visual imagination here, right? That the mother is hugging, but hung humble as a button on bright splendid shroud of your son. We can have visual imagination. How she is hugging and trying to, she is making a lots of lamenting. And she's lamenting over the loss of her son. She's lamenting there. So she can't again see his son. Again, no, she will be isolated. She will be isolated. See how to bear these losses. The families who lost their loved ones only know how great is that suffering. The other people will make rejoices and do celebrate and make functions that they won the war, they have certain victories, now we are like this, they will do lots of things. But think about these three kind of figures we spoke in this poem. What will happen to them? Forever these people have to suffer in their hearts with the loss. Right? Again, they won't be able to smile in their lives. How loss? They only know how it will impact for their lives. It's a great impact for these people. A mother cannot live without a son, and a maiden cannot live without her lover, and the small boy cannot live without his father. Three aspects or three figures categorizing this society lost their loved ones, their dear ones. So how are they going to live in this society? It's really impossible for them to live without, they cannot live without shedding a tear. They have to live with tears till their life ends. So much this what war is a horrifying thing. So much, right? And also we came across something called yellow trench, right? And somewhere they used to say this yellow trench is a place where soldiers fight in ambush, and also the color yellow camouflage or make soldiers. That means there were we said as what, it's a kind of like a barrier, not a barrier, sorry, a bunker in the yellow trenches. What do you mean by yellow trench? Let's speak about that for a few minutes. This yellow trench, what do you mean by trench? Trench is a place actually where soldiers fight in ambush, and also the color yellow means it's what? It signifies like a camouflage. That means we know there are some, we used to see through the TV also in those days that the soldiers, they were not showing their true reality. They were as the surround. Now take them animal chameleon. What do? According to the surrounding they are living, they used to change their colors. So they are very safe from their predators. And all the same thing is done by these soldiers in order to save their lives, to be save their lives from those enemies, right? They were having, like, if they are living like in a greenery surrounding, they used to wear lots of green color, and their faces also they had painted in green color. Or early days, back in history, that means like in 5 years, yeah, back in 8 or 9 years, they used to show in TV also, because they had live doing streaming about the battlefield. In that, at that moment, I can barely remember that some soldiers were having some kind of a green color painted around their foreheads and under their eyes, and they were unable to recognize with the surrounding they were living. So same thing has been done here. This soldier also, right, who lost a we spoke there that certain small boy or this baby who lost his father. That father who was a soldier, he was also having all those things ready, but he could not make his living. That's an unfortunate thing, right? Okay. So I spoke a lot of things, right? Sorry. Is the things clear for you? Do you have any questions? There are some more big things to discuss or remaining. Let's discuss them. Yes, do you have any questions?
Miss, in the
Yes.
line, these men were born to drill and die. Does it mean that they are born to fight and struggle and then die?
Yeah, true. These men were born to drill and die. That means these men indicate the soldiers actually, they do not have another option, right? These people were born, they were born to drill and die, or to fight and win, or to fight and die. And nothing else is happening for them. So that's what this poet is trying to say. These men were, why? Because they got enlisted themselves as soldiers, right? And they have nothing else to do. They were born to drill and die, to make a victory there, and to fight and make a victory, or else to fight and die. Nothing else is going to be with these men. Men in the sense, these soldiers. Yes, it is clear for you. Is it still in doubt?
No, miss, now it's clear.
Right, good. Okay. Then I think no other doubts, right? So let's speak about the lines. I want to speak something more about this mother whose heart hung humble as a button on Sprite's splendid shroud of your son. Let's speak more about those two lines. Here, actually, what happens is the poet is trying to say that this son's death was actually it is a sudden death, right? It was a sudden death. And what has happened? This mother is humble as the button of his funeral shroud, and of the three sorrowful, the critics say that out of these three sorrowful incidents, mother is the most one. The mother losing his son is the most sorrowful incident. Why? Because it is a heartbreaking incident. That's what I said you previously when we were speaking about this certain cancer. A mother cannot bear the loss of his son because she had lots of visions, dreams, and she brought this child to this world. And when step by step, she was like a shadow of this child and waiting and having lots of dreams and everything. But now all things are in dark, went in black. The sun is no more there. What will happen? It's really a heartbreaking thing where we feel our heart is beating at that moment. And also, we can have a visual image how this mother is weeping at the dead body of this beloved child, of her beloved child. Right? Now, what will happen? She's lamenting and she will be helpless in the world. Maybe this mother had only one son, and that son left the world, and this mother is helpless. Nobody is there to take care, and nobody is there to be loved for her. Nothing. She is a solitary figure, and she is representing as a helpless person because she lost her great asset, the wealth, greatest asset wealth she had. She lost it. Right? That's a very heartbreaking incident, how she is lamenting over the loss of her son. Right, okay. Then let's move to the theme. Right? There are some sub themes that you also can come out. Right? You can read this poem again and you can check whether you can take those things as sub themes. You can also mention them as sub themes according to your opinion, but the problem is you have to prove them. Right? You will have to prove them. Therefore, that's what I'm saying every time. You have to be thinking critically. Okay. However, the theme of this poem, the main theme of this poem is what? Glorification of woe. I will let you get this in notes, right? I will get you the Word document. I will send you it. Therefore, don't worry about the notes and everything what I explained to you, right? Glorification of woe. Glorification of woe and sympathy for soldiers. Glorification of war and sympathy for soldiers is a theme. Why? It shows, this poem shows about the glory of the war, and also on the other side it shows gives the sympathy. The poet has a kind of a sympathy. This poet has a kind of sympathy for the soldiers who have to give their lives, these valuable lives they have to give away. And also the other side, he speaks about the glorification of the war, the glorification of war, and also the sympathy for soldiers. Right. So that's about the theme. And also there are some techniques to be discussed. Let's see what are those techniques. Right? Do not weep, the woe is kind. That is irony. What do you mean by irony? The difference between appearance and reality. And the next one, these men were born, drill and die. It can be taken as a paradox also, and this drill and die. Those two words can be taken as alliteration, repetition of initial what consonant sounds is known as the technique alliteration. And also, what else? This hum, humble button, hung, humble button. These are assonance, repetition of initial vowel sounds. Those are assonance. And the next one, and a field where 1,000 crops lie. And a field where 1,000 crops lie, it is known as a paradox. It is known as a paradox, right? The next we can take the excellence of killing. The excellence of killing is a technique. It can be taken as a metaphor. And wild hands, actually I described previously, it is we can take it as a symbol, right? We can take it as a symbol. And there are some more techniques. Yeah, the unexplained glory. The unexplained glory, it can also be taken as a symbol, right? Those things can be taken as a symbol, right? Okay. So when we'll have just a summary of this, what do you mean by this poem, right? I will just go through a small summary, right? Like just like an analysis actually. We know now what happened in the first stanza. In the first stanza, the narrator, what does he do? He addresses the maiden. The first lines we show that the Stephen Crane, the poet, he used to address the maiden, and what happens? He describes the critical moment that he love had to sacrifice his life for the sake of war. That is the thing which happened there in the first lines. He is shot while he is on his horseback. Right? He is actually that's the thing that happened, as I said you previously. He was in his horseback and he had to face that the shot in the battlefield. He threw his hands toward the sky and falls dead, leaving the frightened horse alone. So that's what happens in the first stanza, right? And second stanza, what happened is the poet is describing the nature of the war. Right? The poet used to describe the nature of the war, the beating of the drums by the regiment. Right? Those days they used to have beating of the drums actually. And what happens? Is it a pleasant thing? No, it's not a pleasant. It's very unpleasant. Cannot be heard. It's not a sweet music. And this poet also defines the soldiers as little ones, right? We know that, we described about it. And also he further says what? The soldiers were born to fight in the battlefield to win the war or else die. Right? Right. And also what happened is they are always hopeful about the glory that they are going to earn. The soldiers were really, they had hopes, right? They were having some kind of hopes and they had a kind of glory and that they were going to earn by defeating the enemies. And also what happened is, but the victory should be, yes, the victory was not given for the soldiers, right? It was taken under the political influences. And also when we are speaking about the third stanza, what happens in the third stanza? It describes the battlefield as a place where thousands of dead bodies are found. We said the crops of thousands of crops, right? So crops in the sense the dead bodies. So there we identified that the battlefield as a place where thousands of dead bodies are lying, right? And we understood that the small child, right, is lamenting and asking for his father, and such things is going there, right? However, if we take as a summary this whole cancer, if we take it into a nutshell and speak, what does Stephen Crane tries to say here is the futility of the war. He doesn't speak anything positive. He says that there are some people who are saying excellence of killing because they can gain some benefits through that war. and they can gain some kind of a benefit. But what is told, but when we're speaking about the reality, war is not a thing to be conducted. War is not to be taken place in any country. It brings us unpleasant things. It brings loss of lives, shattering of the families, destruction of the buildings, right? And also bankrupt, the economy is going down. Such things happen to a country when a war is prevailing in there, right? So we discussed a lot of things under this poem. War is kind. Is it clear for you? Do you have any doubts there? Can I know any doubts do you
No,
have?
miss.
No, miss,
Right.
no doubt.
What about Lagdil? Do you have any doubts there? Is it clear for you?
Yes, miss.
Yes,
Yes.
miss, it's clear.
Okay, Lagdil.
Yes, miss, it's clear.
Right, okay. And also one thing I forgot to mention, the tone. The tone of this poem is critical. That we can understand. It's clear, right? The tone of this poem is critical but sarcastic. Why? The poet used to have some of sarcasm. He is trying to mock at this war. You can remember about that war culture, the virtue and the slaughter, how he is mocking. He has a kind of laughter, something he's used to mock. Why this war culture, they considered slaughtering as a virtue in this civilized society. So he comes up with he has a small doubt there whether what this battlefield is it a primitive society, because why? Because they consider slaughtering as a virtue. Inside the civilized society, we cannot come up with saying that slaughtering is a virtue because it's a civilized society. Under a civilized society, as I said, you mentioned earlier, right? There we cannot come kill massacre of people as we want. We can't kill any person as we want because there are several laws and several. If we just kill a person, we will be imprisoned and we will be given certain kind of capital punishments or some kind of things we will have to go through. Right? There are some laws. Right? In order even to give up, even to make a person imprisoned, even there are certain kind of law and actions that we have to undergo. Therefore, so much we are civilized. We cannot do anything as we want. There are kind of laws and acts, right? But in primitive society, we didn't have such kind of things. Therefore, the poet is just trying to mock whether this war field, whether this battlefield is trying to have, is it going in the path of primitive society? Like that, he is having a question there. However, this is quite a wonderful poem about the war. So we learn lots of things about the war. We can come up to a conclusion that war is futile. Right? War is futile. Why? Does war brings anything benefit for us if we speak the truth? Not about the powerful countries who are manufacturing the weapons, but where the country where the war is going. Did we gain anything as benefits if we speak the truth? No, we didn't gain. Now, if we take, for example, our country, did we gain anything? Maybe aids were given from some programs and those things. Except those things, did anything really benefited for us? No, nothing. We didn't gain anything, but then war is a futile thing. That means war is an unnecessary thing to be practiced in countries. In literature field, each and every poet and writer and novelist tries to demonstrate that what war is a futile thing. These young men, and there was another poem by yeah, someone, poet think Lord Tennyson's, right? Tennyson's poem, charge of the Light Brigade. It's a really a nice poem. There he says that the young soldiers who were not patriots, they were put forward and they were asked to go in the front line and to kill the enemies. Actually, they were not given proper planning, but they were just sent as he had, I think, just said like a herd of cattle is going on. They have just sent those people, those young men, to go and fight and come. And the big people who are having higher ranks, they were just waiting. They were just giving the orders only for those young men. And the young men were pushed forward. But unfortunately, many young men had to give up their lives because they had improper training. So these poets who had the experiences, because at that moment, at that time period, many countries had the outcomes of the world wars, and they prayed not to again occur another third world war. They were in fear. But though there was not a third world war, small kind of other wars were going, like war among communities. For example, in Sri Lanka, we had a kind of an ethnic war, and it's a kind of an ethnic war. We had a fight with a certain ethnic, and it created something like that anger for that certain kind of ethnic group also because of that war. So likewise, things happen, but though the world war didn't happen, another third world war didn't created among the world, but war among communities happen, not only in Sri Lanka, in other countries between the Spain, other countries, they had several type of wars. But what happened? This every type of war, right? This ethnic war, though it's ethnic war, though it's a community war, any war, world war, everything is a war. This everything comes under the category called war. So therefore, the poet is trying to demonstrate war is not a sweet thing to be memorized, to be taught, right? Every time there's war, there is violent atmosphere, brutality, and slaughtering, and killing, felling of bombs, shattering of the families, loss of loved ones and dear ones. These things are happening. But only a small segment of society is there who get the benefits because of that war. Right? But apart from that segment, the other people, especially the common people, have to suffer because of the continuing of the war. They lost their shelters even, right? They lost their shelters even because of the war. So much things they had to undergo, right? So therefore, war is a futile thing, and war has a violent atmosphere. It's very frightening thing, very tense, scary thing to be memorized. Right. So we discussed a lot of things inside this book, right? There, I think it's very clear for you, both of you, right? You don't have any questions. So the next day I will speak about the context questions, right? Let's try to find some context questions from the past papers, and also let's do some kind of writing within the class also, and I will give you as homework task, right? To write as essay type question. So I forget your name today, newcomer. Do you have any experience in writing essay type questions?
Not exactly, means.
Yeah, I think no, right. No problem. The next day I will explain.
Exactly.
I make a reminder. Right? I remind you. I will teach you again how to write. There are in the literature paper. I'm speaking about the two main questions that you will get: the context question and the essay type question. according to GC oral paper format, in context questions, you will be given about 3 questions, right? And to answer for them. They are actually, you have to be what? Be familiarized with your text. I want to remind you that be familiarized with your text. Familiarized with your text means read your text. Read your text means what? Read your poems. You have a book of anthologies, that means poem book. You have short stories, and if you have, please let me know later what is the novel that you have selected. What is the novel you prefer? I want to know that also, and also the short stories. Right? Please keep reading these things. No need to take it as a stress. Right? Just read. Now the boys kind, you can just read and try to understand what is this like that. You can read the poem Breakfast, Once Upon a Time, To the Evening Star. These poems, try to read them. Okay, try to read them and try to think what is this poet trying to say us. Like this, try to come up with some facts, what they are trying to demonstrate through the poem. That is how you are understanding a poem. Because understanding a poem is a very first basic thing that a student of who is studying literature must do. Without understanding the poem, it's quite difficult, impossible to answer the question. Because especially I would like to remind, context questions actually okay, you can do, it's fine. But in essay type questions, you will have to know the writing pattern actually, right? I will teach you, and also you have to write the, when I'm giving you homework, the same day, if possible, same day, try to write your answer. Read your text very well and read the notes which I provide you, and you can read some extra notes, but don't depend too much on the internet. Don't rely on every fact, right? That's why we are saying, because we can't rely on everything there. No matter, just you can read and see, but don't go too much, because we cannot say accurately those everything is correct, right? Therefore, what I provide and your school may teach you after school opens, and these things will be enough for you, right? Therefore, try to do your writing. I will teach you, don't worry, how to write an essay type. I'm trying to say you is daily do your homework, especially in literature. Because if you didn't write, you will be in the track of losing. Therefore, why? Because in literature, we cannot by heart everything like other subjects, right? Like in other subjects, we can't by heart and write the answers. That's why literature is a quite different subject. In literature, what you have to do, think critically. You also try to understand the story. If you have any questions, you can come up rising. If you feel that your point is true, you can argue with that point. No matter, sometimes I may not teach that point, sometimes your teacher school might not teach that point, but you may have enough of proof, right? Enough of facts to prove for your point. You can write it, no matter, because that is literature, right? You can write if you are good enough, capable enough to prove your fact. There you are on the track, right? Sometimes some questions they will just give you like bit quite complicated, not much complicated, but bit complicating. Sometimes they will give you questions in essay type, not to make you stress or fear. I'm just saying in order to make you aware about these things. Therefore, first step, read your text daily. Today, for example, read the poem Breakfast and try to understand what the poet says. Take a rough work paper and just write down those things. And when I'm explaining, you can ask your questions. Actually, that poem is done in the class, right? But if you want it, we'll do it as a revision or somehow. Let's try to cover those things, right? However, you have to read your poems. Right? Read your poems, read your short stories, and try to come up with a novel. Discuss with your school teacher. Not only school teacher, you have to think about yourself also when you are trying to think about the novel. Nobody is coming and helping you at the exam to write the novel, because writing answers for the novel is quite a bit complicating. Therefore, you can refer the 3 novels which are prescribed for the GC O level and take novel of your own choice. But the problem arises because the school teacher might do only 1 novel or 2 novel, and you have to write the answers for the term test. That's the problem. However, just think what is suitable for you and just try to read and see the language of that novel and come up with a conclusion that you are going to select as 1 novel out of them. And let me know what is the novel that you all have selected, so that is everything clear now?
Yes, miss.
Yes, miss.
Good. Okay. Let's discuss a question actually. My way is that I think you all like that way, because just finishing the poem and again jump into another one, I don't like to do. I want to make you more, that means you will be more capable of writing answers and study with the things that the facts of the poem will be stored in your mind, and you will be able to write them, and your thinking power will be more in multiples into, right? Like that, you will have a lot of advantages in writing. As I said you previously, literature is not by hearting the facts and doing kind of paraphrasing or just not writing the paper. There's a style of writing. You have to understand the style of writing, right? That's the main thing you have to do there. Anyway, the next day I will inform you what type of past papers do you need to find, right? So then you can download or find those papers from your past paper book. Anyhow, do what is relevant to you. Find the past papers and keep it with you. And I will say this year past paper, next day we are going to discuss. So we can discuss in the class, and 1 question I will give you to write within the class, and after the class is finished, you can send me via WhatsApp. So I will go through them and give you the relevant feedback, right? So that is the way the things are going on, right? If anything needs, you can always ask me, you can text me, no problem about it, right? And yes, do you have any other questions to ask from me out of the lesson relevant to the
No, miss.
subject? Okay, right. Okay, then for today, right? Let's wind up for today, and let's discuss the next day our questions, and if time permits, let's see what we are going to do, whether we are going to do a short story or another poem, what we are going to do. Let's discuss the next day. Okay, right, then let's see you soon. Okay, right. Thank you.
Thank you, miss. Have a nice
Thank
day.
you, miss.
Welcome.